Welcome to a Legacy of History Project, Volume 3. My name is Jordan Vale, and this is...
Jamie Bedford.
And Carries. Today, October 27th, we will be interviewing Rowena Thorne at the Cambridge Narrows Regional Library. Our hopes are that you will enjoy listening to our interview with Rowena Thorne.
Mrs. Thorne, we understand that you were born in 1921 in White's Point. Can you share your best childhood memories with us?
One of the things I remember was of going by horse and carriage to Orchard Store in White's Cove, and going to Jemsag with a horse and carriage, and the horse stopping at Sparks's Brook to get a drink of water on the way going into Jemsag. That was one of the things that I remember from my childhood. I also remember my father coming home from Jemsag and bringing home a puppy dog in a nail keg. And that was one of my childhood things that I remember. And I had a big white cat that I called Snowball.
What's a nail keg?
A nail keg? Well, they were so high and they got nails in them at the store.
Oh, so yeah. It's like a cage?
Yeah.
Are you originally from here?
And yes, I moved to Cambridge when I was between 5 and 6 years old, so I'd be closer to go to school.
What did you used to do for fun when you were a kid?
Well, when in the wintertime we slid downhill, there were no cars then, and skied and snowshoed. That was the main things that we done in the wintertime.
Did you like to snowshoe a lot?
Pardon?
Did you go skiing a lot?
Yeah, I snowshoed a lot more than what I did skiing. I was better on snowshoes than I was on skis.
What did you have to do for
chores? Well, I had to carry in wood when I come home from school, get in water, do barn chores, a little bit of everything when you live on a farm.
I agree. What kind of jobs did you have?
Well, I done about everything there was to do, I guess. There was always something to do when you was on a farm. I helped my father quite a bit because I was the oldest and the only one in the family for 11 years. I helped my father a lot. And I went to the woods and helped him load logs in the wintertime, and I helped him split cordwood. That's 4-foot wood.
Wow.
Don't do things like that now.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes, I had one brother. He was 11 years younger than me, and he passed away 3 years ago in October. And he and his family lived in my parents' home at Cambridge, the yellow and white house on Bridge Drive at the top of the hill. And he would be Carrie and Jamie's grandfather.
Did you ever have any pets? Yes,
I had a big white cat I call Snowball, and a dog I call Stubby, because he had a short tail. That was when I lived at White's Point.
Did you used to live or work on a farm?
I lived on a farm all my life. My parents had a farm, and I helped my father do things on the farm. And on the farm we had horses, cows, pigs, hens. And after I was married, I still lived on a farm. And we had dairy cattle till about 1960, and then we changed over and raised beef cattle. And we grew our own vegetables and strawberries and things like that.
What did your parents used to do for a living?
Well, my parents lived and worked on the farm. My father had a sawing machine that he used to go around and saw wood piles for people. And in the fall of the year, he thrashed grain all around different communities.
How did you heat your house?
Heated with good dry hardwood. And I still heat my house with hardwood that my son cuts for me and puts in.
How did your mother and father provide for your family?
We had all our own vegetables in the garden, and the meat. In the fall, they usually killed the beef, maybe, and a pork. 2 pigs used to kill in the fall, and sometimes they salted pork to keep it from spoiling if the temperature changed. And we used to can meat in quart bottles at that time for the winter. And I guess that's about what I could tell you about that.
What was your favorite toy that you used to play with?
Well, when I was very small, we were visiting somewheres and they had an alarm clock, and I took a notion to it. So my mother sent to Eaton's and bought me an alarm clock to play with, and it cost 59 cents at that time. That's one of the things that I remember. You don't see things like that today for kids to play with.
No. Who were your best friends?
Well, my best friends, well, Edith Stevenson was one of my best friends, and Ethel Smith, she was Ethel Black at that time, and Garda Fanjoy Ferris. They were my best friends. And I did have a good friend, a little Scotch girl that lived up the road here, and we were good friends, but she went back to Scotland about when my brother was about 12 years old, and I never heard from her again. I did hear through a neighbor that was in Scotland that he had been to visit them when he was in Scotland, but I never heard from her again.
Can you tell us about some stories of you and your friends growing up?
Well, we always went to BYPU on Friday nights, and at Christmas time, they always had their Christmas concert in this hall here, which we called it then, the Agricultural Hall. And we always had a visit from Santa Claus, too, with a Christmas tree and everything. And we always had a good time. And then there was Christmas services in the church at Christmas time, that we'd go from one church to another to the Christmas services. And I don't know just about anything else that I could tell you right offhand.
What was school like back then?
Well, the school was a one-room school, grades from 1 to 8, and we had to carry our drinking water from Mr. Fanjoy's house, and we had outdoor toilets, and it was some of the children took their lunch to school at noon, but I usually went home unless the weather was bad, because I didn't have that far to travel to school. But the kids from a distance brought their lunches with them. And they always played out in the snow, or a lot of them did. I usually didn't play out too much, because I would just get back to school in time for school to go in at 1 o'clock.
How many children did you have?
I had 2 sons. George, our Sonny as he's better known around here, and Wayne. And he went to Alberta and worked out there and was killed out there in 1979. So there's just my son and I is the only ones left now in the immediate family.
Okay. Did you travel any?
Not very much in those days. If you did, you went to St. John and went on the steamboat that used to travel on the lake here. Came from St. John, went to Coles Island, stopped at the different wharves along, and it was kind of fun traveling on the boat, and you'd hear them call out what wharf was coming next, where they were going to stop at, and they'd be crisscross back and forth across the lake going down. And,
What was the transportation like in those days?
well, transportation, you had to walk wherever you went, or else you used a horse and wagon to travel to different communities, but mainly in the area where you just walked where you wanted to go to. Yeah. There's the train used to come to Cody's, and a lot of people would go up with the mailman, maybe if they was going to Chipman or somewhere in that area, they'd travel on the train, or the afternoon train went down, where you could go to Norton and to St. John. I went to St. John on the train before my oldest son was born in St. John.
What was being a teenager like?
Well, we didn't have the things that teenagers have now. We made our own fun, and we really didn't have all that much, because it was in Depression times, and you didn't have things, didn't have radios and televisions and all the things that you have now. There was only the odd place that they'd have a telephone. That was something that, in fact, I never had a telephone in my house until 19 47.
Can you tell us about any other friendships you had growing up?
I had various friends in other areas that I used to sometimes visit and used to write back and forth and kept in touch. And there was my cousin, our second cousin, lived next door, and we used to go out walking and things like that, and always went to the 12th of July, the celebration in the area. That was a big thing. And dances. And so it's just hard to think of things that I did do back then. It's been a long time ago.
What were your Christmases like growing up?
Well, Christmas time we always had a lot of goodies. We had white fruit cake and dark fruit cake, and we had chicken dinner and all the vegetables, and we used to have a good treat of nuts and oranges and barley toys and ribbon candy, and we always had a good Christmas. But we didn't get too many Christmas presents. If we did, and we got Christmas presents, they were clothes or maybe a hand sled or skates, something that we would use. Didn't get any frilly things back then.
Can you tell us about a tradition referred to as a frolic and a chivalry in Cambridge?
Yes, a frolic was something that, in the case of a sickness in families or anything, and they were short of wood, men would get together and go to the woods and cut firewood and haul it and cut it up for people. And then a chivalry when people was married, and they always come with saws and the guns and everything else, make a noise, and then the bride and groom would come out on the step, and they would always pass around a treat, candy and maybe cigars for the men, and everybody thought they had a good time.
Cambridge Narrows had community celebrations. Can you tell us about these events?
The Orange Lodge always had a celebration for the 12th of July, and they always had a parade, the band and people walking, and the King William on the white horse crossed the Narrows Bridge, go over to this side and went back again, and they served meals in the Orange Hall over here, dinners and suppers. They had a dance pavilion outside. They had canteens where they sold pop and ice cream and chocolate bars and that sort of thing. And it was a big event. People come from all over. Just that you're seeing a lot of your friends that you didn't see very often. Not like today, if you want to go see your friends, you get in the car and go see them. But then people didn't have the ways of traveling. And that was a big event here in the... And we used to be picking strawberries at that time, and when strawberry crops was good, we got a cent a box for picking strawberries, and when the picking was poor, we got 2 cents a box. But we always managed to make some money to have to go to the 12th of July celebration. That was a big event in those days.
Can you tell us about some of your artistic hobbies?
Well, I always liked quilting. We used to have a group, the UCW, and we quilted quilts for people, and we made quilts and sold, and we done knitting and all sorts of crafty things. And I learned to knit when I was probably about maybe 12 or 13 years old. I wanted to learn to knit. My mother didn't knit, but I was anxious about knitting, so I used to go and stay with my great aunt next door. When her family was out in the evening, she didn't like to stay alone, so she started me knitting just on 2 needles, and I kept practicing at that, and finally I got so I could knit on 4 needles. Then I wanted a skein of yarn to knit a pair of mittens for myself. That was my first project. And a skein of yarn at that time you could buy at the local store, a quarter-pound skein of yarn for 50 cents. And I knit my pair of mittens, and I wish I had kept count of all the things that I've knit since that, for sweaters and mittens and socks to no end. And I still knit and crochet, just to put in time now. And I do a lot. I send a lot of my knitting over to the food bank at Jumpsag, and sometimes like the it just left me, in Sussex, the Salvation Army, and I do send things over there. Just.
Do you have any other memories you would like to share with us?
Yes, I can remember when they started the relief camp out at the Den, just this side of the Night Road, and the men came from all over there, young fellows who were traveling, had no work, and they just traveled from one camp to another, and they cleared land there, and they worked for, they got 20 cents a day, and they got all their clothes and all their eats and their tobacco if they smoked. And then they used to, some of them that was musical and that, they used to go around and maybe play for a dance in the hall, maybe over here at the Narrows, or sometimes at Waterboro or White's Cove. And it was quite a thing to see them clearing the land out there, and they was there. They went away, I think they closed that camp probably about 1936 or 37 that they closed the camp. And after they went away, it was a great place to go to pick blueberries. People used to come with wash tubs and pick blueberries, and I picked them myself out there, but I didn't take any wash tubs, I took a pail. And then now it's all grown up, you'd never know that there was all the buildings and that was there. It was, and as I say, one fellow had the job of carrying the mail from the camp to the post office and back again. He had a bicycle that he traveled on. And got to know quite a lot of real nice people that was there. I know the one person that I knew well, he was a graduate from UNB and he couldn't get any work. And eventually he did get a job with the Power Commission. But for a while, he couldn't get any work anywhere. So that's just the way it was at that time, that there wasn't work.
Rowena Thorne, a Legacy of History project, thanks you for sharing your life stories and memories with us.
Thank you.
This concludes our interview with Rowena Thorne. Thank you for this opportunity at Legacy of History project.